Uh, Good morning. Wonderful people of Wellspring. Thank you, Priya, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you, Denman. That song was wonderful. Lead us back to life in you was, wow, an amazing, soul-touching song. And thank you so much for leading us into that. You know, life is all about relationship. Relationships are very important in life. There's a story I want to share with you this morning before I start. It's about this man who was celebrating his 60th birthday on a beach. And he was on his YouTube channel, and his wife was reading the book, and it was a boring 60th birthday. And suddenly God appeared. It's a story, okay? Suddenly God appeared, and God said, how sad. Your life is so miserable. It's your 60th birthday, guy. Come on. You got to celebrate. So what's that one thing you want to have so that you can celebrate your birthday? And he looked at God and said, God, my wife has become so old. So if you could make her 30 years younger, it would be wonderful. And God looked at him, what? Are you serious? He said, yeah, God, it would be wonderful if you make her 30 years younger to me. And God said, okay, your wish is granted. And God added 30 years to his life. So he became 90 and his wife remained to be at the same age. Sometimes we need to be very careful when we deal with God. Our God is a God of relationship. It's not about religion. We have been studying the book of HOSEA. HOSEA is all about relationship as opposed to religion. We are so used to religion. We want to have religion. We want to have rules. We want to have codes. We want to have conduct. We want freedom at the same time. We want to be enslaved. And that is human nature. And HOSEA is basically a prophecy that is given to us to build a relationship with this loving God and a wayward people who want to have their own way. And if you remember, when we began the book of HOSEA, we saw and we asked a question. I think it was Rena who kind of challenged us by asking a question. Can a broken relationship be mended? Can a broken relationship be mended? And we traveled with HOSEA's experience of having an unfaithful spouse, and HOSEA paying the price of Gomer's wayward life, who was so used to her life of being a harlot, and how he goes and he pays her people who have bought her and redeems her. And we connected with the pain of HOSEA. We saw how difficult it was to have an unfaithful spouse. And as HOSEA dealt with his emotions with a wayward wife, and then we saw God bringing a parallel, how he felt when his people were unfaithful, how God was going through a pain that was much more than what HOSEA was going through, because God valued the relationship that he had with his people, with you, with me, with all of them who trust him, who follow him, who claim to love him, and how God is concerned about his relationship. And today we will be looking at responding to God's faithfulness. What we want to do today is we want to, let me share my screen here. What's that? Yeah. Just give me a sec. Okay. So what we are going to look at is responding to God's faithfulness in HOSEA chapter 14. The focus of the book of HOSEA is not about Gomer's unfaithfulness. It's not about the pain that HOSEA went through having an unfaithful spouse, but it is an expression of God's love for his people and how it pains him when we go away from him, how he values our relationship, how much he desires to have that intimate relationship with you and me because we are created in his image. Last week I was having lunch with my second son, and he kind of asked me a question which kind of took me aback. He said the question was, he said, Dad, you know what? What's the point if God is keeping a gun at my head and saying, you believe me or you're going to go to hell? What option do I have? It's like somebody, putting a gun to my head and saying, you open the door or I'm going to kill you. So what's the option? I do not have an option. I'm forced to believe God. And that question kind of took me back. And I took a pause and I told him, son, it's not that way. That's not the way the whole salvation story unfolds. It's about we who are already going in a direction that is going to destroy us. We have chosen a path, and God is standing at the crossroads of life and pleading us, saying, I have prepared a wonderful life for you. Why don't you join me? That is the relationship that we see here in HOSEA. HOSEA is trying to bring to us this truth that we have a faithful God and we need to respond to this faithful God. We have a God who loves us. We have a God who cares for us. We have a God who wants us to have a wonderful life, but we make some choices in our own life. We make some bad choices that leads us to bad consequences. But God is always standing there at the crossroad and pleading, I am your God. I made you in my image. I want you to have a fulfilling life. And that is the story of HOSEA. So what we are going to do is this week, as we are studying this chapter 4, we are going to see three different aspects. We are having three groups, three different leaders. We'll be talking about three aspects of God offering a way out of our own bondage. And the first thing is that God is calling us to return. God is calling us to return. He says, come back to me. I have your life planned out. I have designed your life. Just come back to me. And the second group will be discussing about the promise to heal. God is promising it's okay if you have made bad choices in the past. It's okay if you're messed up. Come back to me. I will heal you. I want to give you a life that is fulfilling. The New Testament, Jesus says, out of you shall flow rivers of living water. And that's amazing. And that's what God is calling you and me to come back to him. And he's promising us that he's going to heal us. And it's not an unreasonable invitation. In this invitation, God is reasoning with us. Look at your own life. Look at the choices that you've made. And look at what your choices have led you to. Assess your own bad choices. Give me a chance. I want to take your life and I want to make it beautiful. I want to make it wonderful for you. And this is what we're going to discuss in three different groups. And let's break into these groups and prayerfully ask God to help us understand what he has in store for us. And now I will hand it over to Arpit, who will split us into our respective rooms, chat rooms. And let's continue. Let's remain in God's presence and ask these, whichever group you belong to, let's share what the Lord is speaking to us through those scripture portions. And let's come back and let's receive God's edification from each of these groups. Over to Arpit.